Hi, we're live. So we're a little late. Sorry, everybody. Kara and I were just jabbing away. Hi, welcome to Doctors in Demand.
This is the problem
Uh-oh.
when you work with your friends, because then you're just chit-chatting and you lose track of time. But it's more fun that way.
Everybody,
today's topic, though, is so important, right? We spend a lot of time talking about this because this is real, right? Connecting like nutritional well-being with emotional health. You know, you are what you eat.
You got to name the title because not everybody watching knows what today's topic is.
Well, today's topic is about our patients that we figured out some kind of GI issue, and that's causing them the anxiety. So often it is rooted in the GI, but you just don't know it. So, one patient that we've talked about a lot of mine, she was in her 30s and she kept going to the ER with heart palpitations. She felt like she was having a heart attack, and they just kept telling her, "You're stressed, you're having panic attacks, go home." And they would give her some kind of sedative. We're sort of into medicating people for whatever's going on, right? So they would just like calm her down, send her home. We're sort of. That's a little bit of the problem, actually a huge problem today, is that's what we do, right? We don't deal with the underlying problem, and they can't figure out what the underlying problem is. They do her blood, they check out her heart. This woman even went for an echo. She wore a heart monitor at one point. She did it all, right? And it was completely rooted in the fact that she's eating gluten and she shouldn't be. And it was that simple, that one fix, that simple. And this woman was unable to work. She was actually on a medical leave. She had been at one point admitted to hospital because they were like, there's, what's going on with this woman? Because everything was she was dehydrated. She was having, the palpitations, everything was off because of this serious anxiety she was feeling. And it really was just that her body can't handle gluten, and nobody figured it out till she's in her 30s. I could not believe it. So that's just one case.
Yeah, like gluten does this thing where it really crosses the blood-brain barrier for patients. And I find yesterday I had 2 gluten stories. Both of them, neither of the patients really believed the gluten connection. I ran food sensitivity tests on them. It was very strong in both of them. Both of them, I actually did some GI testing as well. And one of them had eczema on her hands and a rash on her hands where the skin was literally peeling and it was super infected. And she had anxiety, depression, and she had GI pain. So to me, I was like, we've got GI issues, blood-brain barrier issues, and it's excoriating her skin. And what is the thing that usually does that for all 3 is gluten foods. And the really hard part about gluten, when you eliminate it, and it took a decent amount of convincing. She was 19. They knew that when she was little, she was having reactions to gluten, but then they thought she had grown out of it. She had bumps on the back of her arms always, which is somewhat pathognomonic, that like there's a food sensitivity reaction. Mm-hmm. The difficult thing about gluten is that sometimes it takes a while to see the results. Whereas like if somebody has GI pain or bloating from eating ice cream or dairy, and they're like, every time I eat, cereal with milk, or I get bloated, I get diarrhea, I get like GI pain. The dairy is a pretty fast switch. Once you take dairy out, pretty quickly your symptoms resolve. So it's easier. And then you challenge it back and get usually diarrhea or pain. So right. It's this fairly fast recognition cycle. The gluten is a much longer cycle to see some changes. It takes a while for the inflammation to work out. But I had my review visit with her yesterday. Her hands were 100% healed. I can't even tell you, like she couldn't lift things up.
You told me about her, I think, when you had seen her after.
I was so stressed
You were
about
so
it because I
upset,
was
like, what do I put on it? Wait, what did you put on it? What did we decide in the end? I can't remember.
I had put a topical antimicrobial on it, so Bactroban cream, and then I had her do half lotion, half oil, that combo with calendula, so it started to heal. But it healed from the inside out when she went off gluten. And she said that her anxiety has improved. She was having regular panic attacks, like not able to go to school,
Yes.
really not functioning very well. And she's in school, going to work, like struggles with some anxiety, but significant improvement. And obviously there were some other factors, like life is multifactorial. It's not one thing, but and that her GI pain is gone. She was having abdominal cramping, abdominal pain. Her GI pain is gone. So I said, this is a really hard thing sometimes for people to change. She's like, I mean, my hands are healed, my GI pain's gone, and I'm going to school and work. Like, this is not a hard thing. And and she's young. So when a young person can see the benefit like that, right? And you can see the changes, it's just so obvious that you're not going to want to go back on that food type, right? She's like, this is not a hardship. This is like a major win.
But the thing about human nature is that we don't want to eliminate foods from our diets. I certainly don't. I want to eat what I want when I want. I mean, I'm just like all of you. But seeing it on the test, then it makes you actually do it. So it's like theoretically, okay, maybe I'll go off dairy, but then I see it on a test and I react to dairy. Now I'm going to go off it. There is something, we're just sort of logical beings and we need to see the proof, because we can excuse all kinds of, oh, that gas and bloating might be because I didn't sleep well last night, or it's that I didn't eat something, that helps me with it, or I'm dehydrated or whatever. We make all excuses. We tell ourselves stories, right? Because we don't want to see the reality of that food is not good for us. And it's very hard to find the foods that you're reacting to these days. Doing an allergy elimination diet is very difficult and very stressful on people. And then you get this conversation in your mind that you and I talk a lot about, because we want people to enjoy their food. It's so much fun. It gives us a nice, like, happy chemical release in our brains. Food should be enjoyable. And we don't want that messaging in your mind of, I shouldn't do this. I failed the food allergy test. I couldn't follow it. All of that negative talk does not help us with our whatever, whether it's sleep problems, bloating, skin rashes, whatever, brain fog, whatever it is. We should be enjoying our meals and really fully enjoying them and not questioning, oh, should I be eating this? I don't know how to eat when I'm out at a restaurant. All of those questions create so much stress for people. But you mentioned something I wanted you to hop back into a little more, Hillary, is that blood-brain barrier. And so we're noticing as a culture that we definitely have this brain-gut connection. And we knew that in naturopathic medicine school, because our professors would say, if they have depression, treat their gut and they will get better. I mean, that was a tenet. That was like the number one thing we were supposed to do first. And so the blood-brain barrier is a whole other level of understanding this. So we go into a little bit more on that, because I think that explains a lot of why people are feeling so anxious all the time.
I think I've seen it. There's just so many times when we have critters in our gut. So I confuse my patients, or sometimes people are like, ew, I have critters.
What is a critter?
We have a microbiome that is like a massive collection of different phyla of bacteria. And some of them can take over, and some of them are what we call opportunistic. And so when there's a growth of an opportunistic bacteria and it's taking up more space than it should, or a yeast, often that critter will start to dominate what's happening for a person. So like yeast is a perfect example. There are several different types. Candida, this is an opportunistic infection. So most people will recognize that when they take antibiotics for something, many people will get a yeast vaginitis infection, or fungal athlete's foot. The fungal infections are likely to come up after antibiotics for many people. And that's because it's an opportunistic infection. There's a disruption in the flora, in the microbiome. Critters are being killed. So it looks at the opportunity and is like, I'm taking up space. And these are old, very wise, very talented creatures at survival. So they're difficult to kill. And there is a big crossover for many people when they have an overgrowth of some of these opportunistic creatures, which we're seeing creatures is really a scary word.
Yeah. Like, I'm picturing sort of slimy green things with scales that people make their bags and their shoes out of.
In your gut. But so we're seeing like a really big uptick in this post-COVID. So something about COVID, and Karen, I've been talking about, you can hear it on Doctors in Demand. But so like yeast is a great example where people will really crave sugar because that is its main fuel source. And the critter will actually change the way that you crave things. It will create irritability, anger, sometimes hyperactivity. So I have this dear patient of mine that I love that I've been working with for years. And we just keep uncovering all the different places where she's had water damage in her house. And so first it was her room and she was having a hard time falling asleep and some anxiety and depression. And then now it's in her kitchen. I treated her with an antifungal because she was having a lot of very strong fungal symptoms, itchy rashes, itchy bottom. And I gave her a small dose. Kara, we were together at a conference and I had to run out and take a call because she went into a deep depression. She has a doctor that she was working with, a psychiatrist, had never seen it. Using a small dose of an antifungal, killing the medicine, boom, it crossed her blood-brain barrier so fast that she was pretty much in a depression for 5 days. It was a very strong reaction. That is like a very unique and not that common, but we see it a lot that when you start to kill, there's some die-off symptoms that really cross the blood-brain barrier. So when you do this work with patients and you're like, oh my God, I literally gave her a bite of an antifungal and it caused this extreme reaction. And she had been having anxiety, sleep issues, insomnia, anxiety. These are brain issues, that there's some sort of brain inflammation. And it's just always reminds you like, whoa, we are so fluid. And when things are a little bit broken down, and this is what we've seen in a post-COVID world, that the membranes, the blood-brain barrier, the gut barriers, that they're just a little looser. So we're seeing a lot of neurological symptoms based on kind of gut health. So if you have anxiety, insomnia, gas, bloating, you feel like the food isn't working for you, something's not quite right, that is real. And you're likely creating immune reactions to your food. And it's also causing insomnia, histamine-like reactions, or anxiety or depression, brain fog. So to me, it's like depression, brain fog is sort of like this like fuzzy, not working quite as well. Or on this side of the spectrum, like anxiety, insomnia, I can't, too much heat. And that's a continuum that often comes back to the gut health.
Yes. So many of you listening right now have this leaky gut picture that Hillary just brilliantly brought you through so many of the details on. It's leaky gut, but actually if you have leaky gut, and you do, you heard that and you were thinking, oh, those are my symptoms. Then you have leaky brain, and that is no good. Nobody wants leaky brain. No. Because then these bigger things are crossing into our brains and we're losing our memories and we're losing the plot, which I'm always saying I'm terrified of. And we have the brain fog and we can't focus as well and we can't accomplish our goals at work. And then we think we have ADHD. You know what I'm saying? You're all feeling this way, I'm sure. And what we're trying to promote is that there's a way out of this. And so changing dietary habits can have profound effects on your mood, your focus, everything. And so using a food sensitivity test is the way in. So we run a group where we do it all together, and then we teach you fundamentals of eating, which brings it beyond just avoid these foods and you'll be good. It's more like, how are we going to feed these gut bacteria and get you to this point where you are actually waking up in a very happy spot where you can accomplish everything you need to in your day. We think that's really possible just after doing food sensitivity testing. So hop in right now if you want to do that with us. This group, we actually added a super special thing where you get a half hour with us both. So we'll see how that works with our scheduling issues already, but we want to do it together because we have a lot of fun doing it together. And that way you'll be really, really clear on the next steps for you and your protocol on what to do. So don't wait. This is a really important thing to do right now.
It's just, and it's fun. You know, yesterday I had a patient that wrote me a note. It was really, she goes, it was so like fun working with you yesterday. She's like, I've never had that before where a doctor's appointment feels fun. And I'm like, it should be fun on some level when we're trying to figure out, it doesn't feel fun when people are desperate, right? Like it doesn't feel fun if you're desperate and something's totally not working. But if you're just like, whoa, I want to optimize myself, something's not, I'm going through perimenopause or menopause, like things are shifting hormonally. I can tell things are shifting. I'm getting more belly weight. I'm not as as metabolically savvy as I used to be. I'm not sleeping as well. It gets to be fun, the discovery process of like what is currently working for us, what we can do to shift and fix it, and getting to feel better. And honestly, when you go to your primary care, and you know, I got nothing against all these great doctors, but the system is a little bit broken right now. There's not a lot of time. And this patient who was saying yesterday, this was really fun. She was told, well, you're not as sick as most of my patients. She went in and said, I'm tired. I don't feel good. Something's happening. Like I'm tired. And the doctor said to her, well, you're not as sick as most of my patients. You're doing great. And so she was like, well, wait, what? Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't feel as, I'm tired. I'm like crashing in the afternoon. And the doctor's right. I'm sure on many levels, like I'm sure the doctor is managing all kinds of shit shows in her practice. And so this patient looks great. But there's all this work that we get to do with this patient. Like, are your foods working for you? Are your hormones in balance? Are you adrenally balanced? Do you have gut critters that we can just kind of rebalance? And so that was the part for her. She was like, this is actually really fun. You know,
well, the fun part is that we can identify areas that need to change and give you strategies to change them. So then guess what? You all of a sudden come back and say, I didn't even know what feeling good was. So that's what is absolutely possible. And that's what's missing in our system is really figuring out what the thing is that we can fix. So fixing the foods is the start.
It is. The foundation. Cultivate your foundations.
That's it. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.